Hi guys, welcome. Let's talk more about Qigong training. So today the first question is from DJ again. Hey DJ. Sifu Adam, would you be able to talk about intention and its purpose when post-training? In each one, there are health and combat stance. Would you say that it is the intention that determines if the posture is for health or for combat? So for any posture, if your intention is relaxation or standing in a lake or something similar, then it's for health. But if your intention is to hold steady while a group of people are running towards you, then you're surrounded by a hungry pack of wolves, and then it's for combat. Yeah, so you pretty much answer your own question. If you're thinking about standing on a lake with butterflies flying around or something, so that's pretty much for health, right? If you're thinking about a bunch of people trying to kill you, of course that's for combat. So, yeah, you answer your own question. So the intention and what you're imagining, obviously, one's for health, one's for combat. But the important thing is when post-training itself get confused. Like when people think of post-training, in each one they distinguish health versus combat stance training. And I talked about it in a few episodes back. For people that have health problem, and that's mainly what this podcast is about, not martial arts, especially with chronic fatigue and brain fog, you want to do the type of post-training that's working on a vertical plane. And a combat post-training is really working on a horizontal plane. This is really important because not all, but most people that do post-training in the horizontal plane that I've met, this includes masters and teachers, usually end up getting extremely drained compared to if they're doing vertical plane type of standing. And the reason is, well, if you're post-training properly and you build a container and you open up your body, open up your pores, stretch out your bones, and you're posting, relaxing, all the blood's going down, and you're opening up your field, basically you're opening a container to absorb energy on a vertical plane. So that's obviously good for your health. But when you do the horizontal type of post-training, rather you just working on a combative technique, or maybe you're more advanced. Instead of working on the mechanics of the body, you're working on projecting energy outside your body. Or maybe you're even more advanced, and aside from just projecting your stuff outside your body, you're also picturing stimuli coming at you. Like you said, a bunch of people charging at you with swords, that kind of thing. Or even more advanced, which is as you work on the mechanics, as you're projecting energy, as you're imagining a stimulus coming at you, you also have a training partner shooting arrows at you, throwing balls at you, or shooting guns at you, like some military people would do. All this is still under the banner of post-training. Or in Zen Japanese archery, right? They will hold an arrow, you're not allowed to move, and you aim the arrow at a candle. If you move, you fail. If you shake a little bit, you fail. And there's no arrow yet, you're just holding on to the bowl. Just post-training, projecting your intent on a candle. That would still be post-training. Or like in ancient time, they'll have swords and they will hold a sword in a posture, project a line through the sword into a target far away, usually a candle, and they'll hold it for a long time. This kind of post-training is really practical for combat. In the case of archery, for example, if you can't even hold a bow without shaking, what business do you have using a real arrow? You're just going to miss. Same thing with the sword. Same thing with the military one where you're aiming with a rifle, you're not allowed to move, and someone is shooting live rounds next to you. If you're shaking all over the place and you're that scared, you got no business being in the military either as a sniper or something, right? So these are very practical ways to train the mind, but they all have one thing in common. Not so much the internal mechanics part when you're first posting horizontally. Not even so much when you're projecting your energy outside. But when you get to the next level, where you start to imagine combat scenarios and stimulus, and even more advanced when there's actually people shooting live rounds at you or throwing rocks at you, as you're aiming that arrow, that sword out again, when you take it to the highest level, it is extremely draining. It's equivalent to studying for a couple of exams. You know, your mind is just so intense when you do that kind of post-training. So everything, there's a price. When you do something this effective for combat training, then your mind pays for it. You're draining a lot of mental energy. Just imagine for a second you're that person doing that type of post training. It's pretty intense, right? That's a lot different than doing vertical plane post training for health. And this distinguished thing has to happen because nowadays people just say the word post training, post training. Oh, I do post training because I do Tai Chi. I do post training because I do Xingyi. But that's an umbrella term, right? So you got horizontal post training, and even then there's many, many categories. Even if you're doing horizontal post training, you could just be at a level where you're working on the alignment and also the micro movements of the body. Maybe you're a little bit higher and you're working on projection of energy. Maybe you're a little bit higher and you're working on combat stimulus as you're doing these things. So even within the horizontal plane, minimum, there's 4 types of post training. And if you look at the vertical post training, that's for health. But even then, it's also different levels. Just the 2 main ones, 3 main ones, you basically got ordinary post training that everyone talks about, like stacking up your bones, relaxing your body, rooting into the ground, opening up your bones and your pores, inflating the rib area and also around your body. Okay, that's pretty popular, but then you get the next level where spontaneous movement starts to happen. The type that happens when your nervous system starts to release tension and there's involuntary movement. But at a higher level, you completely shift paradigm and you're actually working with the stuff itself. Stuff being the field or the light or the chi or the great spirit or whatever tradition you're from, call it by a different name. And that stuff starts to teach you and move you. So now that's a complete woo-woo type of paradigm. But if you do a lot of sitting practice, you discover pretty fast it's not woo-woo, right? And then you inject it into post-training. So even within vertical plane post-training, even at the basic level, there's 3 different types. Horizontal plane, 3 or 4 different types. So it's not good to just say the word post-training. Each one, if you train in each one, and I assume you do, you'll notice that everything that I go through, each one only covers some of them. The main reason is because it's born around the era in the 1940s, 1930s, 1940s. So a lot of the more older methods of post training has been taken out because at that time in China, they were trying to destroy anything spiritual, right? So it's very important as we're learning this, we have to be very clear about what we're training for. Is it for health? Is it for combat? And if it's for health, we're talking about physical health, mental health, or spiritual health. If it's for combat, are we talking about just getting more power? Or are we talking about getting more sensitivity? Or are we talking about weapons? The more precise you are about your goals, the higher the chance you have to achieve it, right? But this podcast is mainly for people that are not feeling good and wants to feel a lot better in terms of physical, mental, and spiritual and emotional health. The reason is I started this podcast, as a lot of you have known that follow my work, was that I've been in martial arts for 40 years. I was full-time for 24 years, and I almost died because I was so sick. And it was qigong that healed me. That's why I started this podcast, because I want other people to feel better, right? So it's mainly for health. This being the case, in my opinion, horizontal post training drains people, and it doesn't really help people that well for health problems. I may get in trouble for saying this, but I've seen a lot of people go through this, and I yet have to see an exception. On the other hand, vertical post training, even at the most basic level of holding the ball, bone breathing, pore breathing, stacking the bone, forget about working the ancient way with spontaneous movement from the great stuff or the light or the chi or the Tao, whatever you want to call it. Forget about the more esoteric side of it. Just what people call internal power, the basic level of post training. Even that alone can get someone out of brain fog, chronic fatigue, adrenaline fatigue, a weak immune system, allergies, all this stuff, high blood pressure. I've seen it over and over and over again, not just in myself, but in students, how basic vertical plane post training can help people with that problem. The hardest thing with it, even though it works so well, is to get people to do it. Most of the time when people do Qigong, they want to do the movement stuff. They don't really want to do the static stuff. But the most powerful stuff, even at a basic level, is at the static stuff, especially standing when it comes to physical health. Or we call it Ming in Chinese. And I really encourage people to do that. It was just actually a couple of days ago, one of the students on our Taoist community, before he wrote how sick he was and his life is over because he can barely walk, that kind of stuff. And I felt really bad, but now it's only been a few months and the guy's post-training up to 1 hour a day. And he wrote me and shared on a student forum in their community that he feel like he's getting his life back because he's starting to feel some energy and he can perform daily tasks, right? So that to me is a real reward of post-training, not that you can fight better, right? I mean, so I hope that helps a little bit. And on to the next question. Well, actually, we're out of time. So before I go, I want to say, in our Taoist community, some of us has emailed me and asked me the questions about what it is about. And I usually talk about it at the end of some podcasts. It comes with once a week, one live stream Qigong class, and half the class is guided meditation. The other half is live Q&A. Comes with a free student forum where I check every day to answer questions to help you learn. Also come with a student library that has all the past classes recorded in there. So if you miss a live stream class, it doesn't matter. All the courses are in the library. Also, you get a discount for the retreats. And the reason why I bring this up was going to say, get a brain fart. Yeah, I was going to say this. So basically, classical Taoism has sitting practice, laying down practice, standing practice, and sitting practice. Sometimes people like to separate these things, but the reality is each one of them, whatever you develop that's unique, you can plug it in the other. Whatever you learn in sitting meditation, eventually you can plug it into standing. Whatever you learn in standing, eventually you can plug it into moving. And whatever you learn in moving, eventually you can plug it into sitting or walking. So this kind of relationship intertwined. That's why in original Taoism, all four was taught. To be one-sided and only focus on post-training, to me, is a weakness. Anyway, guys, please leave your message below. And on the next episode, I'm going to talk a little bit more about this intertwining relationship between sitting, standing, moving, and walking. Because I'm starting to get the feeling from a lot of your messages and comments on YouTube that people are starting to separate the four pillars. And that's not the way it was designed. And it can actually slow down your improvement. Okay, and that's it. See you next time, guys. Take care. Oh, follow the links below because I usually sometimes forget to put the link on the screen. It's below in the description and also the pinned comments. See you later.